Are you looking for an experience that will grow your teenagers' faith, increase their leadership skills, and teach them the discernment to engage with the world all around them, all while taking them on the adventure of a lifetime? I mean, who isn't looking for that? If your teenager loves fun, adventure, and wants to grow in their faith and leadership this summer, then send them to Excel's Summer Leadership Camp. Excel's Summer Leadership Camp is a 12-day experience for passionate young leaders looking to discover God's truth, to discern wisely, and live wholeheartedly. Your teenager will embark on a transformative journey in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where they'll build lasting friendships in the context of community, embark on thrilling adventures like camping, rock climbing, whitewater rafting, and they will receive expert training and certifications in categories like CPR and wilderness first aid. Each aspect of the camp is woven together to help them learn to discover truth, to discern wisely, and take godly action in the context of real-life situations. To learn more or begin an application, go to theexcelcamp.org. That's theexcelcamp.org. Hurry, because summer is just around the corner.
Hey, I'm Greer. Welcome to the Unfinished Idea podcast, a space for you to expand your understanding about the neurodiverse world, which is all around us. Whether you're a parent, a friend, a teacher, or a neighbor, everyone is welcome to join us as we help bring awareness and better understanding about those who are neurodivergent and families who are raising children with special needs. I'm a mom to 2 boys and 2 dogs, and together with my husband, raising a child with additional needs. I often feel lonely and overwhelmed in my daily experience because life looks different for us. This podcast will share practical help, tips, and insights into the difficulties, joys, and differences of the neurodiverse world. So let's start the conversation. Hey guys, okay, this episode might be my favorite episode. It is so special, and you will want to listen all the way through because it is full of so much wisdom. Guys, today we are talking to my parents. They have flown all the way to the UK from the US to have this conversation with us. They also might have come to, be with their grandkids and hang out with us. But hey, we get to have a conversation with them about what it's like for them to be grandparents to a neurodivergent kid. They talk about just the different things they have observed in our parenting, ways that they have learned about the neurodiverse world as grandparents. They have also been teachers and coaches and just kind of sharing so much wisdom and ways that they have grown. And so I am so excited for you to hear this conversation and just all the different things that they share. So let's grab your drink and let's jump into today's conversation. Greg, Chalky, you have raised me for 30, however old I am. And you are also grandparents to my 2 children, one of which is neurodivergent. So what is it like to have grandchildren or a grandchild who is neurodivergent?
It causes me to ask a lot of questions, and so to do research, it's a little challenging in that I have to change the paradigm that I have for the grandfather-grandchild interface and interaction from what was imagined, before there were grandchildren to what there is.
So I would add to that just that sometimes it's very challenging, but it's also very rewarding, and that challenging because sometimes I feel like I'm just at a loss of what to do and how I should be responding, but also rewarding and just seeing the love and the joy from from children in general. And also I would kind of describe it as a roller coaster because I've been, there are just these ups and downs and of experiences, but also feelings of joy and of love, but also of confusion and frustration and self-doubt and just all sorts of things, and guilt, some guilt for mistakes I'd made. I also feel that what it's like is sometimes it's kind of tricky. And I guess that's part of the challenging part, because for me, it's tricky to know when their behavior is because of the neurodivergent brain wiring or is it because that they're actually being naughty and disobedient. And so for me, that's kind of tricky. And also for me that I have to learn and practice different strategies. So kind of along what Greg was saying about the different paradigm, the paradigm shift that as I guide and teach them. But it's also, like I said, rewarding to see just that level of kindness and love And I just think of last summer when we were visiting that we were kind of playing and our grandson was drawing a picture and he drew a picture of me, more the grandma and far the grandpa, and then himself and his brother. And on himself and his brother, he had these long lines coming from his eyes, which were clearly tears. And I thought, oh no, I have traumatized my grandchild from something that I've done or said. So I asked him, tell me about your drawing. And he said, well, indeed, he was crying, but not for the reasons I had anticipated. That he's saying, this is me. When you and Far leave, I'll be crying because I'll miss you so much. And just that feeling of that love that I knew that he had. And so you can bet that drawing made the refrigerator.
Okay, so something to add for listeners. You guys live in the US and you live, it's 5 hours behind the UK in time-wise, like time zone. So it's not like you see them once a week or you see them once a month or whatever. It's like, but when you FaceTime, so how have you been able to build some relationship in that?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is playing hide and seek with the FaceTime. So Greg will pretend like he's hiding and then it's like, oh, where do you think Far is? And then they'll tell me places to look. And so I have the phone and I'm having them find, and then they'll say, oh, try this place, try that place. And so that's one way. And I'll let you tell how you.
It's conversation. I mean, it's asking questions. What have they done today? What did they do in school? What did they like? Or, what are they doing now when they're playing? And so just, engaging them with questions about their life and having them share it with me, and then sharing like what I'm doing that day and learning about their interests, and then trying to, do that event or activity on my own outside of the conversation to be familiar with it so that I can share with them on that kind of thing.
To be specific, playing some very fun video games that you and your grandchildren can relate to.
I'm sure your Google search is very confused. So this month, you're ending our relationships month, which might seem weird that some people might feel like, oh, that's weird to have your parents or grandparents on the show. But it's also important to recognize that relationships aren't just friendships or kind of in a partner, but also family dynamics. And so how have you observed or interact with seeing how our family dynamics are different than what you think they should? I don't want to say think they should be, but just how are they different compared to others, I guess?
It's something that we're still learning, I think. I know I am. And that to respect your family dynamics and relationships and not interject myself into it. But I want to be there because I want to be supportive of our children and our grandchildren and in their development and growth and in the things that they're doing. And so, I want to be close and available and there, but at the same time, I don't want to be, overstepping or interfering with the parent-child interaction that you have. And so I'm, learning that dynamic and trying to be, again, there, but not overly there.
Yeah. For me to remember that how many cultures come together. I mean, just when people get married. And so there's your family culture and there's Chris's family culture. There's my family culture, Greg's family culture. But then when we all come together, it's like all these cultures are coming together of how we think and what we are used to and what we've learned. And then to throw in children and then children with additional needs, that it's all very important, I guess, for me, that to remember to try to be open-minded and to be supportive, as Greg said, and just to be there.
Yeah. Well, it's important to say, like, obviously there's family cultures and then there's like what we call background cultures. So like me being American, there's a lot of cultures. What would you want to say to grandparents who might be listening or others who, maybe have that role, who are supporting kids or kind of younger kids navigating the neurodiverse world?
Well, I think for me, what I'm going to say would be important for all grandchildren and our children, but I think especially for children and grandchildren that receive more negative comments or negative interactions. And so just even more. And that is just to let them know that they're loved and valued for who they are and that they're unique. And sorry, you knew I was going to cry, but I guess just to let them know that they are loved for who they are and not just how they act, but it's just who they are. And that for me I like to be able to find lots of ways to celebrate and just anything, lots of things, and just to celebrate. And when they've excelled at something, maybe it's music or maths or just whatever it might be, their helpfulness, but just to emphasize that positive. And I like being able to just say, oh, did I just see you, fill in the blank with whatever positive behavior, like, oh, did I just see you sharing? Or, and then having them recognize, yeah, I did. Yes, that was me. It's like, well done, or high five, just it's a little thing, but it's, I don't know. I think it's kind of good for them. And that they just can see that they're special and that we recognize the positive things too, and not just when they're maybe misbehaving.
I've coached high school and middle school athletes and taught in high school and middle school classrooms in the United States and been a parent and a grandparent. And it's just in all of those situations how important it is to recognize the positive. It doesn't mean you accept bad behavior or negative behavior, but it's really important to emphasize the positive expectation of whatever it is that the person needs to do. And that's also important is recognizing that they're a person. They're people, they're a person. And so it's not, you might not like something that was done by any of these people, but it's not that you don't like them. And it's important to always show that you love them, but if you need to correct a behavior, great. But also really seek out and search for the positive and reward that.
I just remember when I was substitute teaching, one of the teachers had this little plaque on her desk, be sure to laugh with your class every day. And for me, being able to do that with our grandchildren is to laugh and just to kind of go with the moment. And what comes to my mind is when I was visiting just before for your pre-launch and you had all these extra balloons and how the boys and I stuffed them in our t-shirt. We just played bumper bellies and just how much joy that brought me and them, and just seeing how they kind of went with it and just created a whole new game. And so I guess I would encourage grandparents to just kind of go with the flow and enjoy the moments.
Este episodio es presentado por Honda. Descubra la nueva Honda Passport Trail Sport todoterreno. La Passport más todoterreno que Honda haya imaginado jamás. Esta Passport cuenta con mayor altura al suelo, barras de techo en todas sus versiones y neumáticas especialmente diseñados para cualquier terreno. Además, disfruta todos tus viajes con el control de clima de 3 zonas, techo panorámico y opciones como asientos delanteros con calefacción y ventilación. Conoce más en honda.com/passport.
Love, exciting and new. Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever. It's a love.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships at Bermudan and British Registry.
What would you say about, I guess there's a lot of kind of, I don't want to say generational gap, but just a lot of people your age who are now learning about neurodiversity and not them necessarily being neurodivergent, but their kids or their grandkids. Like, is there a place that you have found helpful in understanding, like a website or a book, or you can say Google.
Google, my daughter. And then I have some in-laws their grandchildren are also neurodiverse, and just hearing from their experiences, but also things that their children have shared with them. I guess just kind of building that community and being encouraged by others?
A lot of Google searching and reading articles, and then what I call rabbit trailing. You read an article and then that leads you to another article, and being judicious about the source, is really important. But that's where I've found most of my information.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, do a lot of Googling. What have you guys learned as you supported us? Or maybe you haven't learned anything.
We have. So I have really appreciated the way that you and Chris model things in terms of like how you both have educated yourself and how you advocate for your children. So by extension, by educating yourself and advocating for your children, you help educate us and others, and then how we can also be advocates, and just how you've kind of helped us, to me, to see anyway, how sometimes the traditional may not fit for everyone. And a lot of this is from listening to people on your podcast, and just being made aware, I guess, of other lenses to look at. And so because of you, we're learning more, and that then how you communicate with us these reasonable modifications or accommodations. And I think of like the whole sitting down together to eat a meal. So you guys, that's a value to you. But you've also accommodated so that it's not expecting someone to sit there for 20 minutes straight, but it's okay if they need a break. They just tell us, I need a break, and they go for that short amount of time, and then they come back. And I remember the first time that happened, and you just explained, it's like, okay, this is what we've decided. Or when he was calling someone bro or bruh, and there's like, okay, that may not be traditional, but that's just his way of connecting. And so, I'm all about connecting. And so of course that's fine, So just again, I've learned from you guys just of different ways to look at things.
I think that the importance of advocacy is something that I've learned, is that systems are in place and the systems recognize the existence of neurodiversity. They don't always embrace or support that. And that it's because it is a system, and that's kind of the weakness of it, is that it's a system, but that it's important that parents and or grandparents advocate for their neurodiverse children and grandchildren to make sure that what is available is employed and followed. And that, it's understandable. It's a little difficult to get it started, but it needs to be started. It needs to come into place and support the child in their learning and their development. And so that the idea of advocacy is really important. And I've learned that from watching you and Chris.
To not be afraid to do tough things, and I've appreciated that. And you've also, both of you have modeled very much grace and forgiveness. So thank you, not only towards us, but towards others, and that they may have responded less than kindly to you, and yet you are still kind to them.
Not always easy, but okay. So one thing that I thought I would share with you is, you both have said it, but just slightly differently, but mean the same, in that a long time ago, like before I had kids, I think it was like when I was doing my kind of teaching course, class, whatever. And basically was saying, you need to get on the kids' level. And you were meaning like the class, and I think it was that idea of like, be eye to eye with them. I think that was kind of more what you both were saying. You both said it at different times. Like I said, not exactly the same thing, but the idea, but that's something that stuck with me. And now raising my kids is I need to get on their level, not just physically, so we're eye to eye when we're having conversation, but also like emotionally, or I don't want to say intelligence, but just like in trying to understand their thinking, I try and get onto their level, which means asking questions and so I just want to encourage parents and grandparents and anyone else out there to think about how that's really changed. Once I really implemented that, I think it wasn't like straight away, but once I really implemented that, it's like changed how I connect with my son. It's changed how his behavior, just kind of because he's seeing that I want to understand I want to be on his level versus towering over him, like both, I don't know if intellectually is the right word, but just, in all the ways. And so, yeah, that's something that you guys have taught me over the years in 1 year. Okay. So to end this episode, like any other episode, my last question always is, what do you want the world to know about neurodiverse people?
I knew this one was coming from listening, so that's good. But I think that what I would like to say is just to encourage people to keep an open mind and to remember that when you're observing the child's behavior, that you are observing only a slice, just a sliver of that child's life, and that slice does not define who that child is. Because you don't know, but that 10 minutes before this behavior, they had held the door open for someone to walk through that couldn't walk very well, or they had just voluntarily shared a toy with someone. Or 10 minutes after this behavior, they, might be greeted joyfully by a dozen different kids from their school. And you're like, whoa. And just realizing that they are more than just what it is that you're seeing at that moment, and to be willing to accept that and to try to find, to learn more about that child, not just what you're seeing right then.
People are people, and we're different. We have to recognize that individuality and difference that exists and address them that way. I mean, I have a number of friends over the years, and I don't treat each of them exactly the same, and that there's different expectations and different things that I might call for help to one about how to, fix a car, and I might call a different one on how to fix plumbing. And, I can offer help in some education issues or something like that, because we're all very different and unique, and that we just need to make sure we apply that to everybody. And that it's a different set of behaviors, but that's not unusual. It's not, something we don't already do. It's just maybe a little more required for this, or it's a little more varied than what we have for others. But it's not, it's still, we're just all valued and loved and deserve it. So
just sitting here and thinking, it's like you and Chris have had a heart for people with additional needs before you ever had children. And I can remember different events that you've had and just different people that you've had in your home that have had additional needs, and that it wasn't like, oh, they weren't a tack on. They were someone that was important and that you guys initiated relationships with. And so I think that says a lot about your heart and Chris's heart about people and just your love for people. And it's not just your children that you are thinking about, but you're just thinking about people.
So my aunt, your sister-in-law, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. You don't know who I pointed to. But anyway, when they came to visit, it was really funny. They were talking about how, like, one of them has a sister who has additional needs. She's now, I think, retired, like 60s. So, this is like a long time ago. And how her mom advocated for her sister, but then also started advocating for like having a ramp onto the bus, like for people who are in wheelchairs. And like, she was kind of saying how she started advocating and then just couldn't stop advocating. And I just like kind of laughed because I was like, that's what happens is you kind of realize this is not right. I'm going to go and change this. And then that gets changed or adapted or whatever. And then you go, oh, well, this now isn't right. And so you just like keep going. And I could see that. So I think she said that, yeah, she fought for ramps on buses, and then something with the library she was like really advocating for, but did it kind of her whole life with advocating for different people.
My experience as a teacher is that a lot of policies are in place to support the various needs that all sorts of people have. But until somebody asks, they're not enacted. The policy exists, so they've met a legal requirement, but they haven't enacted it until somebody says, we need to do this, or I would like you to do this for these people or this person that needs it, and until then, a lot of times they just sit on the, on the books, and they're not put into place until somebody asks. And so advocacy is really important.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's true. Well, thank you guys for joining.
Thank you. You're welcome.
From America to do this podcast.
You're welcome. Our pleasure.
Over the last couple of weeks, we've been diving into all the relationships, friends, family, partners, you name it. And to keep things interesting, I'm wrapping up with 3 fun questions that you can ask those you're in relationship with. But if you're like me and you want more, there's a whole list of questions waiting for you down in the show notes. It's also important to note that these questions don't just have to be asked in February. You can ask them whenever. So here are your 3 questions. If you could instantly become an expert in anything, what would it be? What's the most ridiculous goal you've set for yourself? What's the weirdest food you've ever tried and actually liked? Have fun asking these questions. And if you get any cool responses or any responses at all, tag me on socials. Hey guys, if you can take a minute to rate and review the show, that would help us out a lot. It means new folks can find us, learn about the show, and join in the conversation. It would just mean a lot if you can just take that moment, hit 5 stars, and, well, tell people what the show is like and what your favorite part is.